returning to this diagram, this was the diagram where I translated the spiral algorithm, so the way by which I assigned the letters to the governors, and I translated it into the letters of Hebrew and the paths of the tree of life. So in other words, the tarot trumps. I was able to use this to create the 30 ethers, the Magen Hive, I call it. Magen actually has a gematria value of 93. Magen star is the Star of David. It's an older name for it. So this is the Magen Hive, the 93 hive that integrates the ethers. But turns out that opening this door allows for other doors to be opened, because now that I've got 30 images for the ethers, I've got the question of these 4 levels in each of the letters. So I got to thinking, how am I going to approach that? Am I going to scry them? And I decided, yep, I'm going to, when I'm ready, scry each one of these zones. So 88 zones in total. But I needed to build some other things too. And let me tell you why I want 88 images. So as we know, there are 88 regular governors. But anyone who's been watching my work knows that I am a calendricist. I build calendars, and the first calendar I built, which I've been using for about 17 years, is represented in this parapegma here, which has 88 holes. This is a Mercury calendar. You can see we're now on, actually starting from this side here, following over here, and there we go. We're 22 in. This is day 23, so 23 in. There's no discrete information on this calendar. This is purely for me to track the day of the mercurial year. But obviously what I want to do is deepen or enrich in the symbolic associations with each day. I don't want them to just be blank. Okay, this is day 1, this is day 2, this is day 3. So I want to assign them things. The first and most obvious thing that I can assign an 88-day period is, a sequence of 22 days, 4 times, right? So that was what I did in 2003 when I devised the count. And I said, okay, a given day, such as today, for example, has the value of, today would be the world, right? Because it's actually day 23. So it's either the world or Aleph. I guess it's the world or the fool. That makes things a little bit more complicated. I make them interchangeable. So for me, the fool and the world, the magician and the judgment, the priestess and the sun, and so on. These are pairs. So I kind of work them both at the same time. But this isn't something that's necessary. In fact, it's probably not recommended. So what I would say to begin with this practice, you want 1 path per day. So in this case, the first day is the fool, second day is the magician. And you can see there's the first season has gone by, and now we're on the first day of the second season. Boom, back at the fool. So another 22 days. So that's the simple way of doing it. But now that I've got this assignment of connections to Enochian ethers, I've got something even more valuable than just 88 or four runs through the major arcana. I've got a run through the major arcana in the world of fire, water, air, and earth, and connected to a governor and an ether. So I'm beginning to get quite a bit of information that I can use to load a given day with meaning. And I'm going to use the same scrying technique that I used for this in order to get 88 images that I can then use as bases of contemplation and sources of meaning for that given day. So all of this is going to end up hosted on a perpetual calendar that tracks the real-time movement of the planet Mercury heliocentrically as charted by NASA. I use NASA data. I use the JPL database to track the positions of the planets. Okay, so there is one, or we'll say two more things before I talk about the actual 88 images. So I have the 30. That's great. I have this chart. I need more. Firstly, for those of you who don't know my work, I have a slightly different way of numbering the paths on the tree of life. This is something I learned from an alchemist who went by the name Mithras many years ago. He's sadly not with us anymore, but he came up with a thing called the proximity principle, and I don't want to go through the details of it. You can find more about this on my wall. But basically, you can see that your standard tree of life has the paths like so, but using an algorithm, which is basically consistent throughout, we found three switches that needed to happen in order to basically have an absolute consistent algorithm for how the paths flow here. So normally the emperor is here and the pope is here. We've switched them. So the emperor runs here, the pope runs there. Normally in the regular traditional system, the chariot is here and the lovers are here. We've switched them. And then finally, temperance and the devil have also been switched using this proximity principle. And these are the paths that were switched. Okay, I give that to you as background because I kind of feel it's important to have a nice, solid, logical foundation behind basically everything I do, but particularly this kind of visionary work that depends on a chassis, depends on a kind of vulnerability of consciousness flowing into a framework that I like to have maximally coherent. So, right, so now I've got 88 days, I've got 88 governors. What more do I want before I really plunge into this? Well, I have been seeking a arrangement of the 88 modern constellations for many years again, with the mindset of mapping them onto these days of this calendar. And at first, I wasn't sure what order to use, so I was going with alphabetical order, so Andromeda, Antlia, Apis, Aquarius, Aquila, Ara, Aries, which is fine. It's the easiest way to memorize them. But it turns out that it just ends up jumping all over the zodiac, and you don't really get what effect I want, which is a real sense of the sphere, of the heavens. So I want to essentially map a pathway across the heavens. Where are we going? We're going to look right here. I want to map a pathway across the heavens day by day so that the constellation assigned to each day, it doesn't have anything to do with symbolic meaning. So, for example, the fact that say Auriga, I've assigned to day 5. That's not because it's the emperor, although, you could draw, Auriga's a chariot and so on, but that's not why. So this is a slightly different kind of assignment. This is not using a magical thinking economy, but rather using a scientific thinking economy. I want an expedient mnemotechnic that will help me construct mentally the heavens. So what am I starting with? Well, Ursa Minor, because it's got Polaris in it. And you can see essentially what I did. I got Ursa Minor, Cepheus, Cassiopeia, Camelopardalis. It looks like this. 1, 2, Ursa Minor, Cepheus, Cassiopeia, Camelopardalis, then I think I did Perseus, and I'd have to look at it. The main thing is to trace a path from adjacent constellation to adjacent constellation, and this is the northern hemisphere, and this is the southern hemisphere. And then in 88 days, this path wraps all the way around, and it will end in Cygnus. And the reason it ends in Cygnus, I chose that because Deneb is in Cygnus, and our solar system is actually heading towards the star Deneb. So I thought it was a nice place to start and finish, right? Polaris to Deneb. So I took those, and in that sequence, in this sequence, that there, and there's also examples of this on my wall. And I laid out the constellation. So I built this chart. So now I've got 22 in fire, water, air, and earth. And I've got a nice sequence of the constellations that lets me trace a journey across the heavens so that I can effectively commit the celestial sphere to memory through time and over time. You can see what we're doing is actually we're encoding layers upon layers and on layers of information into this calendar so that we can use it as a perpetual learning tool. And we are going to be continuously familiarizing ourselves with the topics that it traces through and trying every possible way we can of maximizing the surface area of our memory and understanding. So join me in the next video and we'll go deeper and hopefully touch on the scrying project itself.